I was sitting in my wheelchair in full dress uniform outside the VA clinic, minding my own business, when a cop walked up, called me boy, and shot a taser straight into my chest. No warning, no crime, just me, my service dog. A stack of mission notes and 50,000 volts because somebody decided I didn't look like I belonged. Let me ask you something right at the start. What do you think hurt more, the electricity or the humiliation? And if I told you that that one moment in that one parking lot would end with FBI agents, federal charges, a Senate hearing, and a law with my name on it, would you believe me? My name is Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reed, United States Navy Naval Special Operations Group. An IED outside Kandahar turned my lower spine into shrapnel and took both my legs. But it did not end my career. It just changed the way I move through the world. I don't kick doors anymore. I train the kids who do. I still wear the trident. I still sign off on mission plans. And I still care way more about who comes home than about whether I can stand up in a room. That morning did not feel special. It felt boring in the way you actually pray for your medical days to be. Early September. The kind of morning where the sun is already sharp, but the air still has that cool edge. Long shadows stretched across the asphalt, like somebody took a ruler to the parking lot. I pulled my adapted pickup into the handicap space at the Cedar Bluff VA clinic, shifted into park, and just sat there for a second, hands resting on the wheel, letting my shoulders drop a notch. You know that tiny pause before you go into a hospital, the one where you reset your brain from regular life to the part where people poke you, ask about your pain levels, hand you clipboards and pills. That was where I was. Then the drill I've done 1,000 times kicked in, without me thinking about it. I unbuckled, swung my body around, slid down into my chair, locked the brakes, adjusted until my balance felt right. Atlas, my service dog. A German shepherd who could probably outscore half the officers I've met on a situational awareness test, hopped out of the truck and moved to his usual spot at my left knee. He didn't even need a command, that's just where he lives. When we're outside, the truck eye's scanning body relaxed, but ready to brace if I tilt or lock up. I straightened my uniform, smoothed down the front, checked my ribbons the way you check your teeth in a mirror before a big meeting. Bronze Star, Distinguished Service Cross, Purple Heart. A few others the Navy likes to pin on you when you come home broken, but still say, "Yes, sir," when they ask if you can keep serving. People at parades see a rack like that and see glory. They see the highlight reel, the hero shot. When you're the one wearing it, you see different things. Faces, sand blood, calls you made, that you still replay at 3 a.m. Moments where a piece of metal on your chest costs way more than it weighs. You know what I mean. The glass doors at the VA slid open, and I rolled myself inside Atlas, staying tight on my left, like he always does. First person I saw was Rosa at the front desk. And honestly, if they ever lose her, the whole building should just close, because she's half the reason that place functions. She's got the energy of your favorite grandma, and a drill instructor rolled into one, soft eyes, and a voice that can cut through a waiting room full of grumpy veterans without even trying. She looked up, spotted me, and her face lit up. "Commander Doc's running a few minutes behind," she said, flipping through the schedule like it personally offended her. "You want to sit inside or go soak up some sun?" And I said what I always say because we had a bit. "Put me in the shade like a houseplant, Rosa." She laughed, waved her hand like she was shooing a kid toward recess. "Go on then. I'll send somebody to grab you when they're ready. No drama. No tension. Just a normal VA morning. Me, my dog, a late doctor, and 15 minutes to kill." I rolled back through the automatic doors, found the little slice of shade tucked by the ramp near the entrance, the spot where you can see everything without being in anyone's way. I parked my chair, locked the wheels. Atlas settled at my knee, his head just below my hand, in case I needed to ground myself without thinking about it. Pulled my tablet out of my bag, opened up the slides for the briefing I was supposed to give later that morning. Room-clearing basics command sequencing the stuff that looks boring on PowerPoint until you forget it in real life, and somebody doesn't make it home. I texted my Lieutenant Jake. "Be there after consult. You better have them ready." He texted back, "Recruits are nervous, sir. Please be mean." That made me smile. Actually smile, the kind that softens your whole face for a second. I love training. I love getting to stay in the game, getting to shape the people who are going to run into danger next, instead of me. So that was the energy. Quiet, normal, a veteran. In a chair outside a clinic reviewing slides, and joking with his junior officer, waiting for a doctor who was running late, like doctors always do. Then the cruiser rolled in. You can tell a lot about a police car by how it moves. There's the roll of someone just driving past mind on something else. There's the slow crawl of somebody looking for an address or a license plate. And then there's the move where the car is clearly not just passing by. It's circling, targeting, deciding. This one came in like that last one. Cedar Bluff PD, black and white, pulled into the lot. Slowed way down as it passed in front of the entrance, then kept rolling like it might leave, then looped around again. The way it traced that circle sent a cold little warning through my ribs that had nothing to do with the morning air. That's the same feeling you get in a bad alley overseas when strangers start moving wrong when you don't have the details yet. But every hair on your neck says, "Get ready, this is about to get stupid." 2 officers stepped out. One older big frame, pale buzz cut. His chin shoved forward like it lived there, like the world owed him eye contact and deference. His hand was already resting on his belt. Not a big dramatic move, just a casual hang that tells you he's picturing himself in a movie where he's always right. The other one younger, a little jitter in the eyes, shoulders too tight, like he was more worried about what the older guy thought of him than what was actually happening in front of him. I didn't know their names yet. Later I'd find out. Sergeant Brent Malloy and Officer Tyler Hodge. In that moment, they were just 2 uniforms walking straight at me, like I'd already done something wrong. They didn't start with "Good morning." They didn't start with "Sir, are you okay?" They didn't even start with "Do you need help getting inside?" None of that. "We got a call about somebody loitering," the older one said. Not a question. Not, "Did someone bother you?" Just a flat accusation hanging in the air like smoke. I looked up from my tablet more confused than anything. This is the VA. The entire business model of the VA. People sitting around waiting. Everybody in that building is technically loitering at some point. "I'm here for an appointment," I said, nice and clear calm, giving him the same tone I'd use with a junior enlisted who was out of his depth. "Doc's running a little behind. I'm on the schedule for 0900. Just waiting to be called." He gave me this look, a slow sliding scan from the wheels under my legs up to the ribbons on my chest, like he was scanning a barcode he didn't trust. You can see it in certain people when you're in a chair, especially when your skin is my color and your uniform doesn't fit the picture they carry around in their heads of what a real veteran looks like. "Yeah," he finally said. "You got ID to prove that?" Right there, the air shifted. We went from 2 humans exchanging information to a man trying to establish control. It wasn't about understanding anymore. It was about putting me in a particular place in his story. Training never really leaves your bones. So I did what I teach the kids to do when someone with a badge decides you're suspicious, even when you know you're clean. You narrate, you comply, you take away every excuse. "Sergeant, my right hand is going to my wallet," I said, slow enough a body cam could pick up each word. I reached, pulled out my Navy ID and the VA card, with that morning's appointment time printed in big, unfriendly font. Handed both of them up. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reed, Naval Special Operations Group 9, Cedar Bluff, VA Pain Management, 0900 hours. He looked at the cards the way you look at a coupon you're pretty sure is fake. Barely a glance. Then he handed them back like they weren't worth the laminate. "Stolen valor is serious," he said louder. Projecting now, like he wanted anyone walking through that parking lot to hear him establishing his narrative. "Lot of guys get real creative out here lately." His rookie laughed this weird, high, nervous sound that had nothing to do with humor. "Special operations, huh?" he said, eyes on my chair. "That what you told him special ops, bro, you can't even stand up." Atlas shifted again 2 inches closer, solid and steady, because my heart rate had just started to climb, and that's his cue. He wasn't growling, he wasn't baring teeth, he was doing his job, putting himself in a position where he could keep me upright if my nervous system decided to do something stupid. "Sir, your animal is getting aggressive," Malloy snapped, stabbing a finger toward my dog. "You need to control that dog right now or we're going to have a problem." And I felt it, a small crack in the patience I'd been holding on to like a lifeline. You can only be called a liar, a faker, a threat, so many times while you're literally sitting in a wheelchair outside a VA before something in you says, "Enough." "Atlas is a service dog," I said, still trying to keep my voice even. "He's doing what he's trained to do. You walked up on me. I'm sitting here waiting for a doctor. I am not the problem here." The word problem might as well have been a match. His face changed. Something behind his eyes hardened and dropped into place. In that one beat, we went from maybe this is a misunderstanding to full ego mode. "Listen to me, boy," he said, and that word hit like the taser was already on its way. You hear "boy" a certain way when you're a black man in this country, especially when it comes out of a white mouth wearing a badge, especially when you're in a position that already puts you physically lower than them. It's not just 4 letters, it's a whole history lesson, wrapped in condescension. It's "you're beneath me." It's "you need to know your place." It's every grainy black and white image you've ever seen, where someone who looks like you is being put back in line. I was sitting there, in full uniform medals, pinned over a chest that still aches when the weather changes on federal property, and this man decided that was the word he wanted. If it were you in that chair with that uniform on, what would you have done? I still tried to play it straight. I don't say that to make myself look good. I say it because it shows you how far I bent before I broke. "Sergeant Malloy," I said, my voice getting tighter, even though I worked to keep it calm. "I am not refusing any order. I am a disabled veteran on federal medical property waiting for a documented appointment. I have identified myself. I've provided ID, and I can call my commanding officer right now if you want to verify. You do not have probable cause to detain me, and this is outside your jurisdiction." It didn't matter. None of it mattered. Once someone decides you're the villain in the story, they're telling themselves they stop listening to anything that doesn't support that. "Hands where I can see them," he barked, cutting right through what I was saying. And then there was no "you're under arrest." No, "you are being detained." No warning shot of any kind. Just a simple practiced motion as his hand dropped to his taser, the faint pop of deployment, and a barbed wire bolt of electricity hitting me dead center in the chest. People ask me later what it felt like getting tased when your legs already don't work and your spine is full of metal. I don't want you to ever forget this part. It felt like my whole body turned into a fist somebody else was squeezing as hard as they possibly could. Every muscle I still have answered at once without my permission. My jaw locked so tight I thought my teeth might crack. My hands curled in on themselves. My head dropped forward because my neck just quit. And underneath the electricity, I could feel every sliver of shrapnel that still lodged around my spine. Every nerve, that lights up at night when the meds wear off. All the memories you spend years trying to file in some quiet drawer, suddenly yanked out into the open again. I was locked up in that chair. Atlas whining frantic, trying to decide if he was supposed to attack or comfort me. And over all of that, I heard Malloy's voice, satisfied, smug, like he'd just taught a child a lesson. That's what happens when you don't follow orders, boy. Yeah, that happened. And I'm telling you right now, the worst part was not the voltage, as bad as that was. The worst part was the humiliation, the knowledge that I was in full dress uniform, sitting outside a building with a sign that literally says, Department of Veterans Affairs, and I was being treated like garbage, like a liar, like a threat, for doing nothing more than existing in a black disabled body in the wrong patch of shade. Do you think that's fair? Here's where everything tilted. The clinic doors practically exploded open behind me, and I heard Rosa before I even turned my head. Her voice was nothing like the soft, warm tone she uses at the front desk. This was the other side of her, the one I imagined she used on kids who tried her patience when hers were little. What are you doing to my patient? Right behind her was Dr. Navarro Whitecoat. Flapping clipboard tucked under one arm, her hair pulled back, eyes focused like she'd just stepped back into a combat hospital. She walked straight between me and those two officers, planted herself there like she was made of brick. This man is under my care, she said, every syllable sharp enough to cut. He is on my schedule for treatment, and you just deployed a taser on a documented disabled combat veteran in a wheelchair on federal property. Identify yourselves right now. Malloy tried to hit her with that command voice he'd been using on Mia. Ma'am, step back. This is police business, was. We're conducting an investigation of a suspicious individual. She didn't let him finish. Suspicious individual, she snapped. He is a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy. He has a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart on his chest. He is on my schedule. And you, Sergeant, are now on my video. Her phone was already up, recording steady, no tremor in her hand. You can't record us without permission, he said. Because of course he did, like saying it loud enough might make it magically true. She didn't even blink. Actually, I can, she said. This is a medical event involving my patient, and I am preserving evidence for an assault. So unless you would like to add obstruction to your morning, I strongly suggest you think about your next words. While that little war of words was happening, the side door opened, and VA security came out. A lot of people hear security and think washed-out rent-a-cops at a mall. VA security on federal ground is a whole different animal. These are federal officers. A lot of them are veterans themselves. They know exactly who they're there to protect. Leading them was Chief Alvarez. Lean quiet. Something in his posture that told me he'd seen enough mess in his life that this one wasn't going to shake him. He walked up with a calm that was somehow more intimidating than any yelling. Officers, he said, like we were all sitting around a conference table. I'm Chief Alvarez, Cedar Bluff, VA Security. You are currently using force on federal medical property without coordination or jurisdiction. I'm going to need you to step away from the patient and present identification, and I need to know exactly why you're here. Malloy's tone shifted just a hair, but enough. We got a call about a suspicious subject loitering, he repeated, hanging on to that story like it was a life raft. We're investigating. Which call sign? Alvarez asked, completely unfazed. Because I'm about to pull dispatch audio and call logs. And right there, I saw it, the first crack in his face. Just a flicker of doubt, like his brain finally got the memo that this wasn't his playground. This was federal turf, with cameras, logs, witnesses, and people who understood the rules better than he did. My hand had stopped shaking just enough that I could reach my phone. It had been buzzing non-stop in my pocket. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and saw the name that told me this day was not going back to normal. Captain Elise Hart, my commanding officer. One of those leaders who can take a room full of loud, cocky operators down to absolute silence without raising her voice once. I answered. "Ma'am." "Commander Reed," she said, crisp controlled. "You are late to the 0930 block report." "Ma'am," I said, pulling my voice back into that clipped professional rhythm. Even though my ribs still ached from the hit, I'm at Cedar Bluff, VA. 2 municipal officers deployed a taser on me while I was seated in my wheelchair waiting for my appointment. VA medical and VA security are on scene. I am stable. Situation is contained. Silence. Not dead air, just this cold, focused pause where you know someone is processing every word. "Repeat your last transmission," she said. "Did you say 2 municipal officers used a taser on you while you were in your wheelchair on VA property?" "Affirmative, ma'am." "Understood," she said. "Document everything. Do not engage any further. We are elevating." Then she hung up. That was the moment the story flipped from a local mess to a national one. That was the twist. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. From that point on, it wasn't just Cedar Bluff PD dealing with an incident. It was the United States Navy paying attention to what 2 small-town cops had just done to one of their active duty commanders on federal ground. By lunchtime, both officers were off the street told to turn in their weapons and stay quiet. By early afternoon, the FBI civil rights team out of Springfield was standing in the VA lobby badges, out requesting surveillance footage, talking to Dr. Navarro Rosa Chief Alvarez. Anyone who'd been within 20 yards of that ramp. That evening, the story hit local news. Disabled Navy commander tased outside VA clinic, crawled across TV screens, under shots of the building's shaky cell phone clips from a distance, that kind of thing. My name started sliding into sentences with words like brutality and civil rights violation. By the next morning, the national outlets had picked it up. Producers were calling, leaving voicemails, asking for interviews, wanting to know if I'd talk on camera. I wasn't interested in being a soundbite. I just wanted the truth on record. The Navy, the VA, and the FBI were already doing more than most people ever get. And then, something started happening that I didn't expect, something that still puts a lump in my throat when I think about it. Veterans started showing up. It began with 2 guys I recognized from group. One older Marine, missing an arm with his sleeve pinned neatly at the shoulder, and a Vietnam-era Army vet who wheezed on an oxygen tank you could hear before you saw him. They rolled and shuffled up the sidewalk, found a spot near the entrance, and just sat. Then a Gulf War vet I'd nodded to a few times in the waiting room came. Then a woman with a prosthetic leg and a cane. Then another guy with a missing hand. Then more. They brought lawn chairs, wheelchairs, walkers, canes, oxygen tanks, scars, visible and invisible. They parked themselves outside the clinic, not blocking the door, not chanting, just existing. A wall of broken bodies saying without a single sign, "We saw what you did. Try it again." If you had driven past the Cedar Bluff VA that week, you would have seen this quiet, unmoving line of people who had already given more than most sitting there in the heat, refusing to look away. How would you have explained that scene to yourself? Meanwhile, the city was scrambling. I heard later, they called an emergency meeting at City Hall. The mayor, the chief of police, the union rep, the city attorney, a couple of council members trying to look important. The city attorney, from what I was told, went straight into damage control mode. "We can frame this as a misunderstanding," he said. "We move fast, we stay on message. Say the suspect was non-compliant, say the officers feared for their safety." Use that phrase, feared for their safety. That covers a lot. They weren't wrong about that last part. That line has gotten a lot of people out of a lot of trouble in this country. But there was one problem this time. A gas station across the street had cameras pointed right at the entrance to the VA. And those cameras did not care about anybody's prepared statement. The footage showed the cruiser rolling past. Slow, the driver's head turning to look at me. It showed the car circling back, lingering the two officers talking inside. It showed them finally pulling in behind my truck and getting out. No hurry, no urgency, no one waving them down, no signs of a call having just come in. It did not show anyone calling 911 about me. It did not show a panicked bystander pointing at a crazed man in a wheelchair. It did not show a disturbance, a weapon, a fight, anything. What it showed was exactly what I had felt in my ribs. A man in a car, seeing a black guy in a chair in a uniform he didn't trust, and deciding to make that his problem. When the FBI lined that video up with the VA's surveillance, Dr. Navarro's recording dispatch logs that showed 0 calls about a suspicious subject, and the Navy's timeline from my commanding officer, that whole "we feared for our safety" story fell apart hard. Within 48 hours, the Department of Justice filed federal civil rights charges against both officers. The official phrase is deprivation of rights under color of law, which is lawyer speak for you used your position and your badge to strip someone of rights they're supposed to have as a citizen. That's not an internal slap on the wrist. That's real prison time. Then the obstruction question started, because it turned out some people at City Hall had already been on the phone trying to clarify what witnesses saw. Nudge statements in a certain direction get ahead of the narrative. If you ever want to see a federal agent get personally offended, try messing with witnesses on federal property when they know cameras are rolling. It doesn't go well. A week later, I rolled into federal court for the arraignment. Atlas at my side. My uniform pressed as clean as I could get it, my spine throbbing, because pain doesn't care if you've got a big day. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, veterans, curious locals, officials, pretending not to care what the outcome would be. They brought Malloy and Hodge in from the side door in cuffs. No uniforms, no guns, no swagger, just 2 men in suits that didn't make them look as powerful as the badges they'd been wearing. The judge had already seen all the footage, read all the statements. He knew exactly who I was, and he knew exactly what they had done. Bail was set at $500,000 each, and they were barred from returning to any kind of active duty while the case moved forward. You could feel the silence when that number dropped. Not the shocked silence you get when something unexpected happens. More like this heavy sinking thing, where a lot of people suddenly realized that for once a line had actually been drawn on our side. For a lot of us in that room, in wheelchairs on canes with scars hidden under sleeves and collars, that was the first time we'd seen the system say out loud with money and consequences behind it, "You do not get to treat them like that," and walk away. But it didn't stop there. It couldn't. Because by now, this wasn't just about me getting tased in a parking lot. It had become a question hanging over the whole country. If they'll do this to a decorated, uniformed active duty commander on VA property in broad daylight, in front of witnesses and cameras and federal staff, what are they doing to people who don't have those things? Women vets who get told they never served because they don't fit some stereotype. Guys with PTSD who talk too loud when they get triggered and are labeled aggressive instead of hurt. Homeless vets who look like any other unhoused person until you see the faded unit tattoo on their shoulder. That question reached the ears it needed to reach. The Senate called a hearing. Now, I want you to understand something about me. I'm not a politician. I'm not a media guy. I'm not built for polished sound bites. I'm built for rooms with no windows and clocks that don't mean much. I know how to talk to a group of 20-year-olds who think they're invincible and explain all the ways they're wrong. Standing in front of senators with cameras pointed at my face is a whole different kind of battle. But I went. I put on my uniform, Atlas's vest, rolled into that high-ceiling room with the flags and the nameplates and the microphones that pick up every breath. I sat there, right leg stump aching, like it always does when the weather is weird, and I told them what I'm telling you. I told them about the boring September morning, about Rosa calling me a houseplant, about texting my lieutenant, and looking forward to giving a hard time to some nervous recruits. I described the cruiser, the slow circle, the way those two walked up on me, like I'd already done something. I told them about being asked for ID like I was trying to sneak into my own life, about my ID being treated like a joke, about the stolen valor accusations thrown around loud enough for everyone to hear. I told them about boy, the way that word landed heavier than the taser, the way it dragged a whole history onto my shoulders in one syllable, the way in that instant I felt years of controlling my tone, my movements, my presence in public spaces collide with the reality that it still wasn't enough. I told them exactly how it feels when a taser hits a body that already carries war inside it. The electricity, the way your muscles betray you, the humiliation of losing control in front of people who already doubt your humanity. And I told them the part that kept me up afterward, not the pain, but being treated like I was lying about having earned the right to be there. Then I told them what really brought me there. Senators, I said, I'm not here for pity. I'm not asking anyone to feel sorry for me. I'm not a victim at the end of my rope asking to be saved. I'm here to tell you something blunt. If this can happen to me, in uniform with medals, with a documented VA appointment on federal property in front of witnesses and cameras, and a chain of command that actually picked up the phone, then you already know it's happening to people with none of that. And most of them don't get an FBI team. They don't get a federal indictment. They don't get a hearing in this room. They don't even get believed. You could feel the shift. Some faces hardened. Some softened. Some didn't change at all. But the air got heavier, like the room was finally being asked to carry the weight of the slogans they like to repeat: support the troops, honor our veterans, and match them to real life. If you were sitting on that panel, and you heard that from someone who has bled for the flag behind you, what would you say back? Out of that hearing came pressure. Out of that pressure came something I honestly never expected to see with my name attached while I was still breathing. Legislation. They called it the Reed Veteran Dignity Act. My last name right there in the title, which still feels strange when I think about it alone at night. What it does is pretty simple at its core. If you're law enforcement, and you put hands on a veteran who is actively receiving care for service-connected injuries at a VA clinic outside a VA hospital in transit to a VA facility, you better be able to prove, not just say that your life was in immediate danger, not uncomfortable, not annoyed, not he didn't move fast enough when I shouted. Immediate, real, demonstrable danger. If you can't, you're not just looking at an internal review and maybe a few weeks off with pay. You're looking at federal charges. Real ones. The act also forces departments that take federal money to actually train their people on us. Not a quick online module you click through while you drink coffee. Real training on PTSD, on mobility issues, on why someone might seem non-compliant when in reality they're just in pain or confused or triggered. Training on how to recognize a service dog doing medical work instead of labeling it aggressive because it steps in front of a wheelchair. And it says this: if your department operates near VA facilities or military bases, you must have veteran liaisons. Real ones, people who have worn the uniform for more than a parade. So the next time a local cop decides a guy in a chair outside the VA looks suspicious, someone who actually understands what that life is like can step in, ask the right questions, calm things down before they turn into a crime. As for the two officers who started all of this, the ones who decided that morning that my uniform was a costume and my dog was a threat, they went to trial, federal court, jury, judge, the whole thing. The jury saw the footage from the gas station, from the VA cameras, from Dr. Navarro's phone. They heard from Rosa, from Chief Alvarez, from doctors, from my commanding officer. They didn't see a dangerous suspect being neutralized. They saw two men using authority like a hammer on the wrong nail. Malloy was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Hodge got 6. Both of them were banned from law enforcement for life. No more badges, no more guns, no more chances to walk up on somebody like me and rewrite reality because it makes them feel powerful. The Cedar Bluff police chief resigned under pressure. The mayor suddenly had a calendar full of anything that wasn't talking to the press. The city ended up writing a settlement check in the civil case that made half the council swallow hard and reconsider their budget priorities. That's the thing about lawsuits. They don't just hit ego, they hit wallets. The department got a new chief, a Latina woman. Former Marine MP whose idea of serve and protect actually includes the people who served before her. She cleaned house in ways big and small, policy changes, disciplinary changes, training changes. Made it crystal clear that under her watch, you do not treat veterans like that. Not on her streets, not ever. The VA made changes too. More cameras aimed at the outside areas. Clearer protocols for what happens if law enforcement shows up demanding things. More training for staff on when to call security, when to step in, when to document. And then they did one thing that still hits me right in the chest every time I think about it. Right next to the ramp where I was tased, they built a small memorial garden. It's nothing flashy. A few well-kept plants, a stone path wide enough for wheelchairs, a bench at just the right height, so you don't feel like you're lowering yourself into a pothole when you sit. On the wall, there's a plaque dedicated to veterans who have been harassed or harmed after they came home. On that plaque, they asked to put a line from something I said during all of this. Something that slipped out of my mouth when I was talking more from my ribs than my head. Respect isn't charity. It's the bill this country owes to the people who already paid up front. The first time I rolled down that little path and saw Atlas go straight to the patch of concrete where he'd panicked that day, then lie down quietly like he was finally off duty, I had to stop. I set my brakes, put my hands in my lap, and just sat there with my eyes closed, breathing, letting all the pieces of that morning and everything that followed tumble over each other in my head. For the first time since the taser hit, I felt something that wasn't just anger. It wasn't joy, not exactly. It was more like this deep, tired relief that at least this time what happened didn't vanish into the dark. It made a dent. It moved things. It shook people who needed to be shaken. Now I want to leave you with this, and I actually want you to answer if you've made it this far. We say we love our veterans a lot in this country. We clap at ball games. We put flags on the back of trucks. We share posts on Memorial Day and Veterans Day with long captions about sacrifice. But when there are no cameras, when it's just a guy in a wheelchair outside a clinic, or a woman in uniform who looks too young to be a vet, or a man in old fatigues muttering to himself in front of a grocery store, how do we really treat them? Like people who served, or like problems that need to prove they belong? So tell me, if you were sitting where I was sitting that day, do you think what happened to me was just an accident? A misunderstanding? A couple of bad choices that got out of hand? Or do you think it was the truth? A truth a lot of us already knew, finally getting caught on camera in a way that couldn't be ignored. If you've watched this far, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Tell me if you think this was just two bad cops getting what they deserved, or if you think it's a whole system that only moved because for once it was embarrassed in public. If you're in law enforcement and you feel like I'm being unfair, say that too. Explain how you see it. And if you're a veteran or loved one and you've seen or lived something like this, I especially want to hear your story. Put it down there. Argue with me. Agree with me. Tell me what you would have done in that parking lot. Tell me what this country still owes you, because the more we talk about it, the less anyone gets to pretend they didn't know. The next time a man in a chair outside a VA clinic looks suspicious to the wrong pair of eyes,